Hey folks, welcome back to Real Estate Excellence Podcast. It's your host, Tracy Hayes. I interview the best in the real estate industry on each episode, as I mention each and every time. Today I found someone that produces a magazine featuring the best of the best. So she mixes and mingles every day with them. I am so honored to have her and learn more about the doctor who became the entrepreneur in the real estate industry, both her and her husband. Today I want to welcome the owner, editor, producer of the Jacksonville Real Producers magazine, Kristin Lunsford. Kristin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I'm so glad you were able to make it in today. And you know, I learned so much. Everyone has a story. And whenever, I obviously have some people, and there's some people I know or have known for a while, and I brush up on what I do know. Then there's others I really don't know anything about, and you're one of those people. So I go online and I research, go on everyone's LinkedIn, go on your Facebook, whatever I can dig up about you. And it's so refreshing. And one of the great benefits of the show is, I'm sure with the magazine, you're meeting these people out there that are making things happen in the real estate industry, and that's what I'm doing as well, and really getting this, sit down and learn a little bit about them. And so hopefully we can do that today.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah. So I was reading on there, you were born here in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I am a Jacksonville native.
And your father was a pastor.
Yes.
Took you to Atlanta.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, when I was 10 and we moved to Atlanta. As a kid, you just think, oh, fun, exciting, moving to a new house. Being here in Jacksonville, we had so many friends that were in the Navy.
Right.
And I was so jealous that they got to move to different houses all the time.
Right. So you made a lot of new friends, too, at different times, because they were coming in and out.
Yeah, so and then when we moved, I was like, wait, this is not Florida anymore. The first 30 days we were in Atlanta, I swear the sun did not come out. And we're like, what? And people told us, like, oh, Atlanta is just like Jacksonville. Wrong. Atlanta is great. But so, yeah, I lived in Atlanta till after college, and then I decided to move back down to Jacksonville, and I taught middle school at Mandarin Middle for a few years. So I think Jacksonville always has a way of pulling people back in. At the time, though, I did that for 3 years, and then my sister had a baby, and then I was going back home a lot to see my new niece. Exciting.
Back to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. So I did decide to move back to Atlanta. Did that for a couple years, and that's when I actually met my husband, Brian, in Atlanta. And then we decided 5 years ago to make the move back down to Jacksonville here. Yeah.
So you actually reached a level very few people reach. You took your education degree to its highest level of reaching the doctorate. What was your envision? Because I imagine you went that far thinking this was going to be your career and you were going to retire as an educator.
Absolutely. I had always said I wanted to stay home when I had children. That was important to me. I wanted to be there for those young years. But I always felt like I didn't just want to just be home. I always thought, like, oh, I'm always a multitasker. So I was like, I'll stay home with the kids and I'll work on another degree. I love being a student.
Right.
So that's what I did. I was home with my children, and I worked on my doctorate degree at the time. And I just knew getting a doctorate degree, whether I wanted to just stay in the classroom or I wanted to pursue other avenues in education, I knew getting a doctorate degree would allow me more opportunities. I really had a goal of I love reading and writing, so I wanted to write textbooks or come up with curriculum material, and having a doctorate degree would allow me more opportunities to do that.
So writing, I imagine we're going to make that relationship to the magazine eventually, right?
I also do have a journalism degree as well.
Okay.
So
yeah.
It fits.
So you really felt the need for, really instruction. You were like, hey, I'm going to get a doctorate so I can be a superintendent of schools. That wasn't really a vision.
No, not overall. I just love more kind of the creativity behind what you can do in a classroom, and creating curriculum for teachers was really my goal to make learning.
What age group did you really enjoy the most?
Seventh grade was probably my favorite
Is
teaching.
That right?
I taught middle school for 9 years, high school for 1 year. I always said sixth grade, they were like babies coming in, terrified of the big school.
Right.
Eighth grade, they thought they were too cool for school. So seventh grade was like the good mixture.
Narrowing it right down there. Great.
Middle school's crazy age though. So now I look back and I'm like, I can't believe I taught middle school.
Right. Well, it's interesting that you actually said the seventh grade, because obviously you talk to a lot of teachers, they're like, oh, the middle school school, their hormones are flying. They're all over the place. The fact that was one of your favorite years is unique.
Yeah,
right
it
there.
is. It is pretty funny.
So you guys came here to Florida. Now, and we'll get into the businesses. But what was your husband doing before?
My husband, before I had met him, he was actually a news producer in Atlanta. He did the sports producing for Fox 5 News in Atlanta. And then he realized that he did not want to work every holiday, night, weekend, on call. News breaks, you go. And the news business is very difficult. And he was like, I saw all these 50-year-old miserable divorced men working every holiday, night, weekend. And he was like, I did not want to do that. So he ended up quitting and moving to the Virgin Islands.
Oh.
And just worked in a diner. Him and his brother did that, and they said it was the most educated diner because so many people had quit corporate America and were literally down there serving food. So they would work from like 8 to 2 and then go to the beach.
What's the movie with Tom Cruise where he goes? He's the bartender. Cocktails. Yeah. So that's what made me think when you go down and work in a restaurant in the Caribbean.
So he did that for 6 months, and they realized 6 months really feels like 2 years in the Caribbean. Yeah. He's like, there's only so many books you can read and so many days you can spend. And so at that point, him and his brother realized, okay, probably time to get back to the real world. So they went back to Atlanta and started a home inspection and pest control company.
Okay, so they started it there.
Yes.
And now, is this more of a branch off here? Your brother's still doing it up there?
We were, when they decided to expand down to Jacksonville, we saw it as an opportunity of, that's our chance to go down there. Yeah. My husband and his brother, they've never actually done a home inspection. They are the brains behind the business. Okay. So they were like, we can work from wherever. Right. And so my husband briefly mentioned it on a phone call one day, like, what do you think about moving to Jacksonville? And I was like, done. Yeah. By the time he got home that day, I'd already set an appointment with a real estate agent. And I was like, we're going to go to down in Jacksonville, look at houses. And he was like, I thought we were going to talk about this. I was like, we did. You brought it up. I said, yes, done deal. So
because you wouldn't have brought it up unless you wanted to.
That was April and we moved in June. So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
So it's Lunsford Pro? It's
Lunspro. So it's
Lunspro.
Our last name, because it's a family-owned business, and then the professionalism that we
All right, Lunspro Home Inspection.
Yes.
And he's also doing the pest control here as well.
Yes, we have a pest control company, Kingfish Pest Control. They had a pest control company in Atlanta. Him and his brother got up to about 100 employees, and they sold that about 2 years ago. So at that point, we're now trying to just focus on regrowing.
Wow, that's quite a feat to get up to that many employees and run a successful ship, and then obviously turn around and sell it nicely.
Yeah.
Wow,
they did a great job. So my brother-in-law is running the Lunspro in Atlanta, and my husband and I are solely running the Lunspro here in Florida. We're in Jacksonville and Tampa, and also the Kingfish Pest Control.
So you guys literally, when obviously he's educated to get what he was doing in the news producing. You're highly educated, and then you broke from the corporate America, broke from the school system, government, if whatever you want to call that, civil service, we'll call it that, to go out as entrepreneurs. Did you guys have anxiety a little bit of that? What was or was this like, we're all in?
My husband is a big dreamer and a big idea, and he's always just like, we can do it. Like, he's always like, other people do it, why not us? So him and his brother had done the home inspection and pest control even before I was around. But he's always thinking of more and what can we do? And we have an amazing group of people working with us, so it's all about the who. If you have the right people in place, it's unstoppable. Right. So.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure that's one of his challenges here in Northeast Florida is continuing to find good people. He's probably having to turn down jobs because we don't have enough good people to execute them. Is the current issue in our area.
That is for sure. Now, I probably did not always have the entrepreneurial spirit. My husband had for years tried to get me to come join the business, and I was like, oh no, I'm good, I'm fine. Right. But when we took over solely the Florida market for the home inspection and pest control, he was like, now would be a really good time for you to, just come help out. And I was actually working as a director at a private school in Ponte Vedra Beach, just part-time. And I was like, I'm good. I've got this job at the director in education. I'm using
you got the kids
my degree. I've got the kids at this time. They're 7 and 8 right now. So young kids, so very busy. But I realized it could be good for our family. So I started working with our home inspection company, doing kind of the growth behind it.
What is your, so you guys kind of molded yourself into it one at a time. You didn't like both leave your jobs and do it. But your mindset today when you wake up in the morning versus what your mindset was when you were teaching that 7th grade class, how is it different now?
It is very different because as a teacher, you have a lesson plan every day. You know exactly what you are doing, and the business world can be kind of unpredictable.
Right.
And you
try to schedule it.
You try to, and so we laugh because literally, like the first day I showed up working with my husband, I was like, "All right, what do I do?" And he's like, "There is no, like you figure it out. You're smart, you figure it out." And I was like, "Okay, great." So we laugh about that, but it really is. You just got to be like more creative, and teaching is definitely much more structured. I do try to incorporate that organization and structure. I'm very much a planner, so I still try to chunk my days in 30-minute increments, and so I know exactly what I need to get done because once my kids get home from school, I become mommy.
Yeah.
So I have,
scattered.
I don't have a full work day to get everything done, so I'm like, I have to really make sure I am utilizing my time effectively.
So you mentioned something there you're doing the interviews for the magazine.
Correct.
Real Producers. Do you find a similar mindset with these top agents that you're interviewing?
Absolutely. I mean, they're so busy, so they have to have such structure in their day and planned out.
But they have to be creative, too.
They have to be so creative, especially how things have changed over the last couple years with COVID and everything. You really have to be ready to pivot and always be thinking ahead of what could be coming next and how can we adapt to make sure that we are still going forward.
Yes. You're obviously, we go back, she's a doctor. She's highly educated. I'm going to say that 3 times. But obviously, you've done a tremendous amount of reading for your education degrees. But what do you do as a business person now? Are you a podcast listener? Are you reading some of these personal development books? What do you do to stay on top and be fresh and sharp for your interviews?
I am more of a still handheld book.
Yes,
I still love a hard copy book, so I am a big reader. So I do enjoy reading. Our leadership team for our other companies, we do a book study every quarter together where we read a leadership book and then discuss it as well. Right now we're reading Traction, so always trying to improve not only ourselves but our leaders as well.
Right.
I am getting into podcasts more. My husband is a huge audiobook fan and huge podcast fan, so he's trying to get me more and more into those. He's like, just listen to them while you're in the car. And I was like, half the time I have my kids in the car, and that's not what they want to listen to.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The kids know when they get in my car, they're more likely to be listening to a podcast. I see that as too, because I like the hardcover, just like you. I feel an accomplishment when you I can put the book on. So I read that book, and that sort of, but your kids see you reading that.
Yes,
your kids hear what you, instead of blasting the music, which they think is the normal thing, you're actually listening to 2 people talking, and they start listening to what you're listening to because they can't get away from it, right? And it's and they just start absorbing it, and you'd be amazed. You could stop it, pause a podcast and say, hey, what do you think of? Oh, and they'll spit back because they're listening because you're listening.
It's funny because my daughter, she's 7, and she was in the car recently, and I had on an audiobook, and she was listening, and then the next time we got in the car, she's like, "Oh, what chapter are we on, Mommy?" And
Exactly.
I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yes, exactly. That is so awesome. That is awesome. So now, have you read Ryan's books, Ryan Serhant?
I have not read those
All
yet.
right, so I'm going to give you a copy.
Okay.
I'm going to give you the first one, which is Sell It Like Serhant, and then Big Money Energy came out. But read that, and I'm almost sure you're going to be one of those people, because I would like to probably maybe have you on in 6 months or so.
Okay.
Because and dig into some of your interviews that you've been doing and so forth, and what you've been learning there, and update. Obviously, we'll have the first podcast is about you and who you are, but dig in about and talk about these top agents and a lot of their what do I want to say, correlations.
Yeah,
right?
sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Who has had the greatest impact on your life?
Probably my dad. He is a very hard worker. I mean, his growing up as a kid, he got so excited if he was the first one to the YMCA. Like if he beat the janitor, he was like, yes, like that was his goal. You know, like he was always up early, getting his day started and going. And, you know, as a kid, we were like, Dad, that's pretty lame. You know, like you're the first one in the parking lot. Good job. But he was like, that's the best way to like start your day. And now looking back, it was amazing how busy he was as a pastor, but he was there for us. He has 3 daughters. I have 2 sisters, so he had 3 daughters, and he was able to be there at everything for us, still doing an amazing job, helping his church, helping the people at the church, and just focusing on, it's about building relationships with people, and that's like the best thing that you can do.
You know what's so unique about, you know, being a pastor, being a minister, and running a church? They have to deal with everyone's opinion of how it should be done.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, they make the decision, and how they have to listen. You know, some of us like, no, we're gonna do it my way. No, he actually has to listen, and he absorbs it and takes it in, and then obviously every day he's standing up in front of people, and whether he's preaching, or he's instructing, or simply just being that pillar in the community. It's a unique position.
Yeah, and just being like now seeing like how well respected he was and is, and just how much he impacted people's lives. Like that's something so great, you know.
Yes.
You know, like ministers don't make a ton of money, but I don't think you can put a price tag on being just a positive influence in other people's lives, and that's the most important thing.
I always remember my pastor. I was an altar boy, and just remember those times growing up, and you know how he laughed and everything, and my parents, you know, I mean, we still remember him today. I grew up on Cape Cod. He's in a different church on Cape Cod, at least the last time I checked. But yeah, he was someone in my life that was you know, there for that period of time.
Yeah, it's so cool because to us it was just, you know, Dad, but now, especially as we're getting older, people are just coming out of the woodworks being like, oh, let me tell you a story about your dad, and let me tell you a story about a time your dad helped me through like this difficult time.
Oh,
and
man.
that just like means so much.
Yeah. Oh man, that is. There's things I do, and I try to reach out to other people, explain it. I use a program that I send my thank you cards, my birthday cards out, and the owner of that company is all about, you know, when you send someone a card, just as one example of many things you can do, and to open that card and just say, hey man, you're great. Or you know, someone to send a card out to someone who doesn't expect to get a card from you, and they get it. And of course, this allows you to take pictures. I take pictures from Facebook. When someone opens a card and there are pictures in the card, you know, it hits them right there. You know what I mean? It just hits them right in the heart. And if it makes them smile, that's what it's all. I mean, you might not see them smile, but if you can. You don't know where their life is at that point, and when they reach that moment, and you could put a smile, which sounds like your dad put a lot of smiles, a lot of people through the years, and I mean, besides being a big sports star, politician, you know, which are, you know, the likelihood of that is get struck by lightning. He's impacting many more people on a daily basis, and how amazing that is.
Yeah, and to me, that's, again, like I said, you can't put a dollar sign on that. You know, that's invaluable.
Yep. All right. So the magazine, let's talk about that. Let's dig in and tell us about Real Producers. So Real Producers the magazine's been here for a couple of years. You took it over early this year.
Correct.
Right. So forth. What is the goal really of the Real Producers magazine? What are you trying to get out there?
Well, kind of a little backstory. We were a partner with Real Producers previously with our home inspection company, because we loved the idea of being able to get in touch with Real Producers. So when it ended, my husband and I both were like, oh, that's a bummer. Yeah. And then instantly we both thought we should take it over. We kind of friendly argue over whose idea it was first. I say it was mine. He says it was his. It was mine. Because we were just like, it's so valuable being able to be
Let me ask you something. I heard something in your voice. Did you get that accent in Atlanta, or that didn't come from Jacksonville?
It actually is funny because my first grade teacher was from Georgia.
Right.
And when you're learning a lot of words, so I think I had a Southern accent before Georgia. And I think Georgia probably definitely impacted it as well. Once in a while, the Southern accent comes out even more, so it's funny. When I came back down and taught at Mandarin Middle, the kids thought I was so Southern, like so Southern. Now, I didn't ever really think, compared to Georgia, I didn't have a Southern accent, but coming down here, it definitely comes out sometimes.
That's funny. So it was your idea because the previous owner just said, hey, I don't want to do it anymore. Let her franchise agreement just expire, I guess.
Yeah, I think some things happened with her, and they were just going to end Jacksonville World Producers because COVID hit and everything, too. So it's just a difficult time. So they were just going to end it. So we reached out to N2 is the parent company that does the Real Producers and several other magazines as well. So we were, like, reaching out to them. We're like, how do we take this over? So we went through, several interviews, talked to lots of different people, and we took over officially in March of this year.
I did, went online, and obviously there's some videos of before, and I know you guys just had a huge event in September, which, I mean, the agents had it all over Facebook. I mean, down at the stadium, great setting. How does Real Producers, in a sense, support that, because the production seemed to be very high level?
Yes, we work with the top 500 agents. That is our goal, is to connect businesses with the top 500 agents. Real Producers realize that you can build a business based on word of mouth and building relationships, and real estate agents are a great group because they are a referral source for every business pretty much. The problem is there are so many agents in the world in general, but especially like in Jacksonville, I know we have over 10,000 plus, agents, but on average, the top 500 are doing majority of the business. Some statistics say about 75 to 80% of all transactions
I can pretty much bet
are those top 500. So when you're trying to build relationships with people, that top 500 is who you want to spend your time with. The problem is, who are those top 500? And how do you get in touch with them?
Well, that was one of my questions. Where are you getting the statistics? How do you judge that 500?
It is a combination of working through different metric systems, MLS, personal submissions. It's a lot of research because it's just not, you can't just Google top 500 agents in Jacksonville. So it's a lot of research that we do. And then it gets difficult because a lot of agents are under a team and all of the numbers are put under that team leader, so then
who's really not producing, they're just managing.
Exactly. So it is a lot of extra legwork in trying to reach out to, I do research on Facebook too. I'm like, okay, I've seen this person, and so I'll get their numbers.
So just in a broad sense, I assume because you do so much research, number 500 is probably doing how many million a year?
It's based on the previous year. For 2020, it was over 7 million.
7 million makes the cut. So any agent out there doing more, 7 million or more, or probably even 6, you never know. Although last year's been great, they need to, if they're not already have an invitation from you, need to say, hey, you know what? I did 10 million in 2020.
Absolutely. Feel free to reach out to me because we do take those personal submissions because we are trying to get the most comprehensive fair list. And so, yes, absolutely.
So you invite the 500 to your event, which you're having another one in December down in St. Augustine.
Yes, at the White Room. Beautiful venue overlooking the Bridge of Lions, beautiful rooftop. All the Christmas lights will be up. So the agents are super excited.
So obviously you invite 500. 200-300 show up? You typically get a number like that?
Yeah, for our Jag Stadium, we definitely had over 250.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot. It was great, and it's the top agents, and then our preferred partners. So it's a lot of success in that one room. And a lot of agents tell me they're like, we don't really go to events anymore, but they're like, we'll come to the Real Producers events because they know it's going to be the best of the best there. And then, FOMO, the fear of missing out. There was definitely some after. As you mentioned, social media was definitely lit up that night of agents at our Jag Stadium event and agents that were not able to make it that night. They're like, we're not missing the next one.
Well, the agents, anything you do, whether it's a training or you got to make it an event. So to get them to come out in the evening and go all the way down to the stadium, you've got to make it like, oh my God, if you miss this, you're missing out. It's a life-changing event. There's no, the term event, you have to really like make it bold type, like this is an event you cannot miss. And
the president of the Jags actually came out and spoke at the event as well too, Mark Lamping. So that was pretty cool. He talked about how important real estate agents will be in the redevelopment of downtown. So, of course, they loved hearing how important they are.
Or because many of the agents, too, are season ticket holders, too.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
they had to show up. So, all right. We talked about, so the goal, the underlying goal, to go back to that and reiterate it, the underlying goal is to bring together and create these relationships of the top people who, in our economy, building a house is very important. New homes, because when you build a house, there's so many different parts involved. Labor, refrigerators, ovens, whatever, this whole production. The real estate agent is also a center of a great bit of services to go around, whether it's the lender, it's the home inspector, the pest inspector, who's going to cut the lawn, all these things are involved in this great circle of events. So I imagine, what as a non-agent getting in, what is the ticket price for what do you expect from that supporter of the mag? Because that's what I assume the non-agents are supporters of the magazine.
Correct.
To get out there. So
yeah, the agents cannot pay anything to be part of Real Producers. Everything is completely free to the agents. They cannot pay to be featured. They cannot pay to come to our events. So everything is supported through our business partners.
They can't take you out to a nice dinner to get the next interview?
And no, they can take me out, but I not guarantee anything. So the goal is to get partners, businesses that want to partner and get to know those top agents. And so it depends. The pricing depends on the ad size, because we produce a magazine every month that goes out to the top 500 agents and just features their stories.
And then are you more or less doing like a yearly agreement, because you have the magazine, but also you have the events and the expenditures of those.
And because the whole idea of Real Producers is a relationship building, so it takes time. So our most popular is actually a 3-year agreement, because we also do spotlight and feature our business partners in the magazine. So if you do a 3-year agreement, you get 2 full story articles on your business, and you get to tell your story, which businesses love and agents love, because agents say, we work with the same businesses over and over, but they're so busy working. Oftentimes, they don't get to know the people behind the business.
Right.
So they love reading the magazine because it just tells the personal side of those businesses.
Right. Yeah, there's no doubt. We talk about relationships, and we all want to have a lot of relationships, but unfortunately, there's only so many hours in the day.
Exactly.
And we got kids, and we got ball games to go to, and
life is busy.
And we need to read a book, and amongst the other things. So it's so important. So when you're talking about the 3-year agreement, when you're presenting, let's say, to a Jet Home Loans or something like that, and I know you have some brokers and so forth, but any vendor, non-real estate, that you're looking to try to get their investment, does it just click for some, and others are, really, it's a little bit harder, even though they could afford it?
Yeah, it really has to be on like a growth mindset.
Right.
Like, you've got to look at the big picture, because some people definitely think, 3 years, like that's a big commitment.
Right.
But relationships don't happen overnight.
No.
On average, it says it takes 7 to 10 touches of a person to kind of win them over.
Right.
So that's a lot of, time to get together. So if you have a growth mindset, I think people then start to realize how valuable that relationship time is.
I love that. We are listening to the same people. You're 100% right. Too many, I think, they don't understand. Even though all the podcasts and books we're telling you are all about the relationships, you've used that term, relationships. And especially in our business, it's all even. But even in the guy who sold 13,000 cars in 10 years, writing cards to all his people every month, he was keeping top of mind, but he was keeping that relationship that he was thinking of them. And the relationship is, like I said, and it doesn't happen overnight. We don't have one magazine article and all of a sudden they're, the most popular person in town either. It's got to be a consistent thing, or having someone on the podcast or something. It's about time and getting that initial. My goal is to get the initial hour and sit down, learn about you, obviously promote you, as you promote these agents in the thing. So the growth mindset, God, that was so powerful. That was a powerful statement, because I think so many are all about, well, if I invest this, am I going to get a deal tomorrow? Is my phone just going to start blowing off the hook tomorrow? No, you got to be in this. Real estate is a long term, good, bad, and ugly. Downturns in times you can't even have time to put the sign in the yard, like right now, before you got to
Absolutely.
10 offers.
And that's people, if like we tell them, if you think just putting an ad in a magazine is going to bring you business, and you're not going to come to the events or try to interact with the agents,
You're wasting your time.
You're wasting your time, and that's not a good partner for us. Mm-hmm. So it's really about the combination of the magazine, being at the events, interacting then more outside with the agents.
Kristin, this is so powerful. People don't realize how powerful this is. It's actually going through me right now because I'm telling you right now, it's like you said, just because you put an ad in the magazine, you're putting the ad in the magazine to be seen as a supporter of this program, which the greater program is building relationships.
Absolutely.
You're putting top people. That's your job to only put top people. You don't have any sideshows going on.
Everybody that is a partner with us has been recommended by a top agent.
Right.
So that is a requirement for that.
Awesome. So that costs money. I mean, people pay big money. You're not going to get it by putting one back of the magazine ad, or back of the Yellow Pages.
Yeah,
which
you've got
doesn't
to really
happen
just
anymore.
it's because Real Producers is not just a magazine; it's a whole platform.
Right.
So it's being involved with real producers, coming to the events,
So
supporting.
how stressful is it to be the host of the most when you have an event like that? Because you're the focal person.
It is a lot. I do kind of enjoy the events.
The attention.
And
I know.
I've always loved like party planning and stuff. So
Awesome.
I'm like, it's kind of, this is actually, fun too. So I enjoy that aspect of it. It is nice at the end of the night when it's done and it was a success. Because, like the leading up the days before, it definitely can be very stressful and making sure and, last minute people saying, oh, I want to come now too. And,
Right.
trying to check if, they're part of, if they're part of the Real Producers, and
Sure.
if they're
Sure. It's so I'm president of my alumni association, and I'm involved to organizing the few events we have each year, and to get a card from an old alumni who, we probably met, but we don't know, but just out of the blue, and then just say, hey man, you're doing a great job, which I imagine you probably get a ton of after one of your events.
It was very nice, and actually our event at the Jag Stadium, it was supposed to end around like 7:00, and 7:45 people still weren't leaving,
Right.
and then they were asking me.
Security's like,
Well, and then they're asking me like, all right, what do you have planned for our next event? And I was like, let me just clean up from this one,
Right,
So I
right.
took that as a huge compliment that they didn't want to leave and that they're excited for the future events.
So to talk about the event though, real quick. So what is kind of typically your agenda at the event? Do you bring in some speakers, or what do you?
Yeah, there's no real agenda. Sometimes we'll bring in speakers like we did at the Jag Stadium, but it's really just a time to come hang out, eat, drink, have a good time. Seems to be a winning combination of just mingling. We tell like our partners like, it's not a game of how many business cards I can pass out, because again, that's
Right.
not building a relationship.
Right.
It is go in and try to just connect with a few people and make a meaningful conversation.
They're
with
high
them.
producers.
Yeah.
Most vendors can't handle. If you've got several people out of that 500, you are pretty busy.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to grow your staff to be able to handle what business they are able to give you if they were giving you all their business. So
Yes.
You're right. I mean, it only takes a few in our business to really.
Yeah, especially with those top 500, because they are bringing in a lot of transactions.
What do you love most about working the magazine?
I love just getting to know the people. I love telling people stories. I've always said everybody has a story.
Mm-hmm.
They just often don't get to tell their story. And I love just being able to share it. And like I said, I did have a journalism degree. I never went into news because so much of it was so negative. And I love the magazine is literally just positive. It's telling people stories and just creating community.
All right, now this is no names need to be mentioned for this
Okay.
question. Because, it's fun, when I was researching doing the podcast and talking to a coach and that has been doing podcasts, and networking was his main gig anyway, and the podcast was his vehicle. They always prepared you for, that interview that was a dud. Have you ever had? Because you've only been it's almost a year now. You're coming almost 10 months now. You've owned we said March really.
March is when we took over. Our first issue was July.
So you've done a number of interviews. Have you ever had somebody that you're like, oh man, it's gonna be a great interview, and then all of a sudden you start talking to them like, oh my God, I can't publish this?
Not too much. We do have writers on staff that will fill in any gaps.
Right.
So It's funny. I mean, so many agents have really fascinating
They do.
stories because
Yeah.
so many have done they've had like previous lives.
Right.
So, and I mean, you can take one little snippet of someone's story and make it
So many of these agents, and just, I mean, you're my 38th episode. I think I've probably interviewed 30-something agents. There's been some, like Austin Gray, non-agents and so forth, but even he has a unique story. So many of them, their story is so unique, they could write a book about it and about where they were and the failure that they felt and wanting to quit, but kept pushing on, and then met somebody that coached or mentored them or gave them some nugget that just got them going.
Yep.
And amazingly turned
Absolutely. That's my husband. People are like, oh, you've had so much success. And he's like, we've had a lot more failure, But people don't, always broadcast their failures. But, I mean, and we're actually in a group for our home inspection company that really just helps build people up. And they'll talk about their failures. And you can learn so much from how you failed and how others failed. And that's then when you get successful is when you can learn from those mistakes.
For sure. I mean, if you any book you read, I don't want to get political, but I'd love when someone tells me about our former president. Oh, he had so many bankruptcies. How many businesses does he own?
Right.
He's failed enough times. He knows. Now, he'll probably still fail at some things, but
Absolutely.
he's learning every time. If you have not failed, somebody's probably, or you just got the golden nugget. I don't know, but I think even, the Facebook, he was a young guy. I don't know how much he could have failed, but he's failed a lot within Facebook, but keep pressing on because he learned from it and just changed. Luckily, his ship was strong enough to stay afloat.
Yeah, and if you're not failing, are you pushing yourself far enough? Are you challenging yourself that you're not failing? Could you do more?
Right.
Are you taking the risk necessary to go to the next level?
That whole point, again, from the books is how many people that were they were one step away, one swing of the bat, one swing of the axe to get the golden nugget, and they stopped.
Yep.
And if they just kept pressing on in the consistency, an agent wants to. They're one of the top. We'll just assume they're one of the top 500. I'm going to change the question around a little bit. How do you select who you interview for the next magazine?
Well, we have our list of the top 500, and then we ask for nominations. So that's what I particularly love, because being successful is one thing, but people wanting to work with you is another thing.
Right.
And I love when people nominate them, and I ask them, like, why are you nominating them? And they'll just write, like, oh, they're so great to work with. They're so easy. They've helped me so much. That's what's really important to me. Yes, your numbers are awesome. How much volume you've done, that's great. But what are you doing to help the community?
Right.
So that's what I particularly love, is getting those nominations.
Right. And that's one thing I found too, is a lot of the agents who are successful are going out and speaking or doing seminars or doing trainings. I just had Stevie Hahn on the other, her episode's going to go out next Tuesday. And, she started an Instagram course. But she makes herself available. And she's now reaching out. She's doing her podcast is starting next Wednesday with a lady, I think somewhere up in the Midwest. I want to say Michigan, but I'm not 100% sure. They're doing a podcast together, but they're reaching out now on a national basis. But they're spilling out their story and their experiences and their successes, so to motivate, educate others.
Yes, absolutely, and that's what we particularly love, is those agents that are helping, especially like the new ones coming in, because. Again, we know how many agents are out there, and a lot of them are not going to make it.
Right.
But we love seeing the top agents helping agents and just sharing their knowledge, because the top agents, I'm sure many of them can tell you the mistakes they've made, and they're like, learn from my lesson. Don't do it. You know how I did it.
Yes.
So, as when I was going through my master's degree, our professor always said, somebody's already done it. Beg, steal, and borrow. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Learn from other people.
You'll come up with your own ideas along the way.
Yeah, and you can adjust it to fit you, because what somebody else does may not be exactly what you need to do. So you can take it and make it your own. Right. But it's not reinventing the wheel. Right. So you can learn so much from other people. And that's what we love, seeing the top agents that are helping other people.
100%. That's so. Oh wow! So you have an endless list there, because I think there's some top agents, but like I said, some of them don't want to participate. I've invited some to the podcast. Some are, whether they're afraid to go on Facebook Live, which I don't necessarily have to do the Facebook Live. We can just do an audio and not see you. But they're much better looking than me anyway, so I'd rather have them on the video from that standpoint. But you gotta. I'm coddling them. I've been trying to give them some encouragement because I know their story is actually valuable. It's
We've had some that are a little hesitant and some that are like, I have a whole team of people behind me. It's not just me. They're like, it's my name that's associated with it. So we have done where instead of just spotlighting them, we'll let them feature their whole team as well.
But but some of those leaders, they put that team together. They're leading that team.
Yeah, they've done the work. They oftentimes are just very humble and don't want to take all the credit. But they had to find those people. They had to lead those people.
Yes.
So they definitely deserve the recognition.
In the trial, some of these people, some people coming to mind. I won't mention them, but I'm sure you're probably thinking of some of the same people that I am. You put that team together. Yeah. You've been doing this 10, 15 years as a team, and you know the trial and tribulations, and that's what you need to share with others who want, because other agents have visions of building teams too, and they go, well, what about hiring people? We know some people, they just hire everybody. Well, I guarantee you the top producer will tell you, don't just hire anyone. Recruit anyone to be on your team, because obviously an agent's 1099 anyway. So, but the recruiting, it's the top agents will tell you, be a little more, stringent.
Especially because their time is valuable. So who are you pouring into? If they're not, the best recruit, you only have so much time. So be very careful.
I love, I know CC Underwood's one of your people, and I've had her. She was my first show, one of my best shows. I think Daniel says I'm getting better every day, but it was a great guest. CC, you were a great guest. Hopefully you're listening. But she has people come in when, considering to be an agent on her team. She says she gets the whole team together, and they almost do like a group, social, but get to know the person.
Absolutely.
See if that person is a fit on their team, because they don't want to bring in poison.
Right, because, one person can completely change the culture and dynamic of the entire team. And if you've got something great going, you don't want to disrupt that. So you absolutely need to make sure that it is the right fit for everybody.
Super. Well, we're from a time wise, we try to keep it about 40-45 minutes, which I think we're getting close to that right now. So I'm going to start coming in for a landing here. I call it my 2-minute warning questions. And you mentioned this earlier, but this is my standard question. Okay. Is it more important who you know or what you know?
Right now, I say who you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's all about the who, and they can do so much for you, because a person can be so super smart, but you only have so much time.
Right.
You can't do it all.
Right.
So where we are in our stage of life, for sure, absolutely who, because time freedom is so important. We have small kids, so having people in place that can help us.
That are sometimes better at that other thing.
Absolutely, because too, there was times, and I had to get a different mindset sometimes, because I was like, well, I can just do that when I was working with my husband. He's like, but you don't have time to do it all. And if we find somebody to do those things, and I was like, oh, that's silly to pay somebody. We actually outsource our laundry now. Because I was like, that's so silly.
I like that. So we have to give you the notes on that one.
But I was like, that's so silly to pay someone to do our laundry. But he was like, but if you're doing high level work instead of folding the laundry, how much more valuable is that? So yes, we outsource our laundry. And
we're doing the lawn. I've told my wife, who's an agent as well. And hopefully, I think she'll make your list. And next, this is a year. She's one of the top Florida homes. She got some notice the other day. She called me bragging about it. I said, honey, I didn't expect anything less, actually. I knew you'd be successful at it. So,
well, congratulations to her.
Yes. So we're both doing very well. And I'm like, honey, you've got to focus on the $500 an hour chores.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are people who totally are support back operations, $15-$20 an hour, folding the laundry, whatever you're paying there, that's what they do, and they're great at it, and they probably fold the laundry better than you do, and it's actually done, and the fresh clothes are there and probably smell really good.
I can tell you our clothes don't stay in the dryer as long as when I was doing the laundry.
Exactly that.
Yeah, but that's the same conversation my husband had to have with me, is you could do $500 an hour work,
right?
Instead of folding the laundry, and he's like, we're giving somebody else a job that can do that.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a mindset shift.
We went last year to hauling a lawn service. One, I hated doing the edging and I hated doing the trimming. I can ride a lawnmower all day long. I enjoy what the grass looks like after it's cut, but the reality is, I had to take time away from my kids on Saturday to do it, and then obviously I work with a major builder, so being available on the phone on Saturday is important too. So I'm like, what I can make on a phone call versus paying someone on a monthly basis to mow my lawn is nothing.
Yep,
really.
you've just got to look at your priorities and see,
Yeah.
where your time is best served.
Right. And picking the brains of these 500 people, I guarantee you're going to find more details on what we're talking about right here. All right, so what's your husband's first name?
Brian.
Brian, you and Brian are going out on the town. Are you a Jaguars, the Iceman? Are you Jumbo Shrimp Girl? What do you like for the
We are
sporting?
Jaguars. Our pest control is actually a sponsor of the Jacksonville Jaguars, so you will find us on Sundays actually down on the field.
I have seen that.
We have field seats, so very exciting. My husband has always lived in Atlanta except for his time in the Virgin Islands in our 5 years here. So he is a long-line Falcons fan
Okay. Well,
as
that's
well.
too bad.
But
I guess for Jaguars, Falcons, it really doesn't.
he was like, I pretty much traded,
Understand the pain.
So we actually went to the Super Bowl in Houston.
Oh, cool.
Where we lost in
Yeah,
overtime to
yeah.
Tom Brady. So,
Yeah.
he kind of not gave up on the Falcons, but was like, oh, they
Well, that was
broke my
kinda like
heart.
the high.
He's like, it's like that girlfriend that you keep going back to. He's like, you keep going back to
Yeah.
the Falcons. So he's
They're going to do it
excited
this year. They're going to do it this
Yeah.
year, right? That's
it's always a building year. It's always a building year next year. So yeah, we're huge Jags fans. You can't beat like the weather during football season down here in Jacksonville, the open stadium. It's just fun.
Although you say open stadium, I really wish they'd actually build a stadium like the Detroit Lions have, indoors, air conditioning, nice quality seats, everyone's comfortable.
No, I love it hot. Like Atlanta.
You
always
like
had,
that
Atlanta
early
had
September?
a dome, and I was like, no, I do not like being inside. It was too cold. I love the hot. I was at the Patriots game when the Jags beat them when it was super hot, and I was probably the only person that thought it was the most wonderful thing ever because I was like, oh, I love it.
It can be.
So.
Oh my! I have stories there, but we don't have so much time. I was on your Facebook and I saw you guys. You guys went somewhere recently, but what is on your travel bucket list? I mean, the high end, like the trip that you would plan months or maybe a year in advance. What do you guys got something on there?
Yeah, I love traveling. I love planning. As a kid growing up, I always wanted to be a flight attendant. I think just for like the free flying. And
Sure.
I told my husband, I was like, I'm still going to be a flight attendant when the kids go to college. And he's like, we can travel without you like working. So we do try to travel a good bit. Our goal is to hit all 50 states with the kids before they graduate high school. We have a map where we put their picture in the different states that we're
Sure.
going to. And it's fun too because they'll go to the map and be like, oh, well, we need to go to this state. So what we have planned coming up, we're actually going to Jacksonville, Wyoming. In March.
Yeah.
So far, spring break. So
I had Patty Ketchum. She's one of the top Florida Realtors instructors. We did an interview with her 4 or 5 interviews back. If anyone wants to watch it, she went to Jackson Hole on a snowmobiling. It was a 4-day snowmobile trip, and she actually sent me the information the other day, and I looked it up. She said you're out in the middle of nowhere. You're riding the snowmobile during the day, and then you get to a lodge. And you stay there, and then you go, so that you don't have, if something happened, they got to fly a helicopter.
Oh, wow.
Because you're out in the middle of literally nowhere.
that's pretty more adventurous than we'll probably do with our kids.
Yeah, that was my thought, because mine are 8 and 11. I'm like, honey, I think they allow, I have to look to see if they even allow kids to ride on the snowmobile, because obviously, it's like riding more or less riding a motorcycle or a wave runner.
Well, we did.
There is some danger involved.
We went to Park City, actually, March 2020, and so COVID literally hit while we were unlocking our condo door, and they're like, everything is shut down, but they still did allow snowmobiling, and our kids were like 5 and 6 at the time, and so I had my daughter on the back with us, and I'm a pretty safe, slow driver, and then she was pretty cautious, and they kept telling us, like, you're going to have to speed up. You're going to have to speed up. So they do allow them, but she was like, don't go too fast, Mommy. And I tried to tell the group, I'm like, y'all can just go without us. And they're like, well, we can't leave you.
We can see the trail of snow. We'll get there.
Snowmobiling was pretty awesome, so.
That does sound excellent. So you're going to Jacksonville, you're going to go skiing? Is that your...
My husband's actually never been skiing. My ski experience is, people laugh at this, but my middle school in Georgia put soapy carpet Ina Hill and taught us to ski, and then took us to like a North Carolina ski slope, and that's literally the only time I've
only been one time to Breckenridge. It takes work.
Yeah, to me, I'm not a fan of cold, and I'm not a fan of pain, and that's all that skiing sounds like to me. So I'm fine with just snowmobiling, ice skating. I think we'll try to get our kids into ski school and maybe just watch them. But not sure if I'll venture into the skiing.
I think it's the after skiing is what people are into. Yeah.
Yeah.
That maybe being sore, but like getting the fireplace going and warming up and thawing out and having
see, I'm
a
like,
few
I
drinks.
can just sit by the fire and skip the whole ski thing, you know, like that works for me.
Right.
So I just love, because, you know, we live obviously here in Florida, and as a kid, it was funny. My dad used to call us over to the TV if there was snow on the TV, because we never experienced snow. I did experience, was it 1987 or 89, my only white Christmas here in Jacksonville. So I do love like a winter, but only for a week, and then I want to come home to Florida.
Yeah. My kids have not seen snow yet, and we're trying to figure out something for them as well to because I grew up in the Northeast. I've plowed snow. That's the greatest thing. I've said that story on here. There's nothing better than about 3 o'clock in the morning where there's not a soul to be seen, and just stop the truck, get out, and it's so quiet you can actually hear the snow hitting the ground.
Wow.
It's
snow
incredible.
is beautiful, but just don't want to live in it.
Yeah,
I'll visit
exactly.
it, but there is no.
Visits.
Atlanta was too cold for me, so that's the extent of I don't do cold.
The Yankees come down and get in the sun. No, just you're fine. You don't have to spend the entire day in the sun. 1 hour in the sun here, you're okay.
Yeah. I love it here. So I love vacationing places, but definitely love living in Florida.
Right. Well, Kristin, I've totally enjoyed having you on, and obviously we could probably talk for hours, but I really, let's like in 6 months, maybe before. So, what's your event calendar for next year? You've got one in December, then the next one's going to be.
We'll do one every quarter. We don't have quite the dates, but we usually do them like every 3 months. That one will probably be late February.
Okay, and then you're going to go on vacation.
Yes.
So February, May, June.
That one will probably be June-ish or July.
Okay.
And then September.
So maybe I'd love to maybe have you on before the June show, promote the June show, what's going on, and that's where you're having it, that sort of thing. Yeah. But really catch up, because I'd really like to dig in to the stories because by that time you'll have another, I don't know how many more interviews you're going to do, but stuff that, these books, because facts tell, stories sell.
Yep.
And and we don't have to mention anybody's names, but you're going to hear a lot of unique stories and just things that you'd probably, I'm sure, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I got to get that down type thing. So I'd love to share that. But thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate it.